Hi, thank you for joining us all day today on our Tech Community Live. It's been a great day. We've had hundreds of questions between our 18 previous to this, so 19 AMAs. So we hope we keep up that momentum and just get more great questions coming. We've had, in case you missed it, we've had AMAs on things like Universal Print and Microsoft 365 apps, Windows 365, how to upgrade to Windows 11. So we've had a lot of great stuff come in, a lot of great feedback coming from you. So this hour, what we're going to do is we're going to start, we're going to answer your questions as we've been doing. But instead of being about Windows Autopilot or about Universal Print, this is open office hours. You have a question about Windows? Give us the question about Windows. You have feedback? Give us your feedback, because your opinions, your feedback matters to us, and we take that to heart. So my name is Joe Lurie, and I'm a program manager with the Microsoft Endpoint Manager team, and I focus on management, deployment and management of Windows devices and other endpoints as well. And I have a group of experts that are on camera with me, not like next to me like this. I'm going to hug them all, but they're all with me. And so we're going to answer your questions that you're typing into the tech community page. And we're going to talk about other things as well. And besides for these 3 or 4 people that are with me, we have a lot of people who are a little bit camera shy that didn't want to come on camera. These people are also answering your questions as well. And so you might find that a question is answered on the page that we talk about more on camera, or we'll just answer it on the camera. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves, and then we'll get going. I think we're starting with Jason right now.
Hey, thanks, Joe. So Jason Sandys here. I am part of the customer acceleration team that is attached to the engineering, the Intune engineering team. So fair game for all things Intune config manager. I have a huge background as well. Welcome aboard, everybody.
And David.
Hi, I'm David Geyer, and I'm a program manager. Today I'm working on Windows updates in MEM. That's both config manager and Intune. And I've been working on various forms of Windows servicing for about 6 or 7 years now. So that means I know a little bit about a lot of things and not a lot about very many things.
Hi all, my name is Aria. I am a program manager focused on commercial management in case you've missed any of the previous live sessions. And I'm here today and really excited to hear any of your feedback or questions.
Thanks, Aria, Jason, and Dave for joining me today. So one thing I'm gonna start talking about is Windows 11. And if you all joined us in the last one, we talked about upgrade tools and upgrading from one version of Windows to the next version of Windows. And typically in the last 6 years, that meant going from Windows 10 to Windows 10. And now we're talking about maybe Windows 10 to Windows 10. For those of you that are still on 1909 and you're going to move over to 21H1 or 21H2 when it's available, or for those of you going to Windows 11. But when we talk about those updates or upgrades, depending on what you're doing, updating or upgrading, Windows Update for Business has to be part of that plan. So Aria, why don't you talk to our people on the office hours that aren't yet using Update for Business and just really tell them why they need to start using Update for Business.
Yeah, of course. So one thing that I find myself trying to explain to folks a bit is what is Windows Update for Business? I'm fairly sure at this point, most people, especially most admins, have heard the term Windows Update for Business, WUFB, have to move to the cloud, have to move to WUFB, and view it as this thing that's opposing WSUS, but they don't really understand what it is. So Windows Update for Business is really just a set of controls that allow you to manage what's offered from the cloud and what the device does after it's offered. And these controls are available through a Graph API with the new Windows Update for Business deployment service. They're available through group policies. They're available through CSPs. But they're really, at the end of the day, just ways for you, the admin, to communicate what gets offered from the cloud when and what the device does with it. And I really want to hammer home one thing of it's not an all or nothing. It's not all WSUS or all the cloud. That's insane. You can move slowly along. It's a journey. So we really recommend that, yes, get cloud attached, get AAD joined or Azure Active Directory joined, and then slowly start moving different workloads to the cloud. Maybe start with just quality updates and managing those with Windows Update for Business in the cloud, or maybe quality and driver updates, and then slowly progress the rest. So WFB is great, definitely look into it, but understand how you can use it to improve your cloud strategy, not how you can use it to necessarily replace everything right away. Although long term, the cloud is better.
Cloud is better. One thing you just mentioned was quality update, and then you mentioned drivers. So when we talk about quality updates, and that's versus feature updates, right? Talk about the difference between a quality update and a feature update. And then I want to introduce someone else that just joined us on camera. He decided not to be shy. But let's talk about quality updates first, because she mentioned quality updates. What's the difference between a quality update and a feature update? Because that's also part of that whole, how do I push my patches to my devices?
Yeah, of course. So a feature update or an upgrade or a version is going to be something that's coming with a whole bunch of features at the same time and a new life cycle. So for example, we had Windows 10 version 20.004 or Windows 10 21H1, and soon Windows 10 21H2. And these have features and they have a life cycle attached to them of this will be supported for this period of time. By supported for this period of time, what we really mean is this will get quality updates published to it with security fixes to known vulnerabilities and known issues for this period of time. So what that means is, hey, if this is supported for 24 months, we're going for the next 24 months to give you all of the security fixes, quality fixes, bug fixes that we can to make that as good and high quality as possible. And so the security updates are monthly. The feature updates for Windows 10 are semi-annual, and for Windows 11, based on customer feedback, are going to be annual.
That's awesome. And you just mentioned a 24-month life cycle, so I feel like I have to specify that would be on Windows 11 Home and Pro versions, editions. Windows 10 does not have a 24-month life cycle, but Home and Pro for Windows 11, 24 months, and Enterprise and EDU for Windows 11 is going to be 36 months, again, based on feedback. So thanks for specifying that. I do want to introduce Scott, who just joined us as well. Scott's going to introduce himself, and I've got a lot of questions for Scott, so I am glad that he came on camera so he can answer some of those. Scott?
Hi, thanks, Joe. Hi, I'm Scott Manchester. I'm the Partner Director of Program Management for Windows 365. I'm a 20-year veteran at Microsoft, primarily worked in virtualization technologies for the last 10 years, but worked on networking and media and a whole bunch of other technologies during my tenure as well.
Great, thanks. And I'm going to stay with you for a minute because you just talked about that, you work with Windows 365, and that's something that we've literally just announced last week. I say literally, but I think it was like not even a full week ago. We announced it, and some of you might have heard it. You read some stuff about Project Deschutes, and we renamed. We actually gave it a name now. Talk about what is Windows 365 for our office hours people here, and then maybe the difference between it and Azure Virtual Desktop as you were working on that as well before that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, before joining the employee number 2 on Windows 365, I was the product manager for Azure Virtual Desktop, and we built Azure Virtual Desktop to sort of address the opportunity we had to have a first-party solution to help customers fully leverage the great reach and capability that Azure had. We've got great partners with Citrix and VMware and a handful of other virtualization solution providers, but customers were looking for a first-party solution that would provide them all the flexibility and reach that Azure brought. But also they were looking to move to a model where they could provide a full Windows experience in a multi-user platform. So one of the other major innovations with Azure Virtual Desktop was the Windows 10 multi-user or Windows 10 Enterprise for Business multi-user. And that's been a huge hit, and frankly, about 85% of the workload on Azure Virtual Desktop is leveraging that new Windows 10 multi-user experience. But with that Windows 10 multi-user experience, though, it solved a lot of problem with people who use traditional virtualization solutions, where now they can move to a full Windows experience versus a server-based experience. It still left a lot of gap for customers who didn't have in-house expertise around virtualization or didn't want to build that in-house expertise. And we also had a really strong signal based on the number of MSPs and SIs who were there to support customers with Windows Virtual Desktop, that they still needed someone to help them, even though it was a PaaS service offering and significantly reduced the overhead of building out virtualization solutions, they still had to lean on another provider. So we were getting signals that taking things even further and providing a full SaaS offering of really bringing Windows out in the cloud in a way that allowed every enterprise and every small business the ability to take advantage of this new opportunity. You've probably, if you've seen any of the materials we published, if you heard Satya's keynote or the mechanics video, we talk a lot about the fact that we can scale down to an organization of one, meaning there's no fixed cost for Windows 365 for business. You can amortize it off across a single user, where in the past you really had to have about 25 users or more to amortize the fixed cost of managing a virtualization environment across enough users that made the economics work. And then on the enterprise scale side, integrating the whole management and deployment experience inside a Microsoft Endpoint Manager is really where the innovation is here, right? That allows admins today to leverage the skills they have and all the great things we're hearing from Aria about how to manage their Windows ecosystem. Everything she said applies to the Windows 365 ecosystem as well. And that's really where the magic is here, is they don't have to manage these new cloud-based Windows experiences any different than they do their physical estate.
That's great. Thanks so much for that. And yeah, so prior to where I'm at now as a program manager, I was in a few different roles, and one of them was I was a pre-sales architect, if you will. We didn't call it that. That's basically what my role was. And I was selling WVD in the very beginning of WVD days. So getting those differences and now saying, you know, really what it's evolved to now, WVD is Azure VD or Azure Virtual Desktop. And, you know, and now we have the Windows 365. So our virtualization stack is just, it's growing so much. And it's being so, doing so much more than it was even just a few years ago. It's awesome. I'm sure I'm going to come back to you to answer some more questions in a minute. But Aria, I have to come back to you because GovGeek let us know that you talked about quality updates. Those are the monthly updates, and feature updates. Those are semi-annual updates, except on Windows 11, they're annual. But you missed the Windows Feature Experience Pack. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So first, thanks for asking this question. I think it's really pivotal to call out all the different ways we're shipping updates, because I know we're adding new ways, from enablement packages to OS swaps to typical LCUs or latest cumulative updates. There's all these different methods and technologies we use to ship updates, and we're changing them regularly. And so feature experience packs are just one way that we were experimenting with delivering update content. And so where you'd primarily see those is with the Windows Insider program, which I will certainly pitch a little bit later. For now, what I'll say is feature experience packs are ways that we can deliver feature update content to those pre-release audiences running in-market versions to see how those features progress and how they do. And when they're functioning to the right level, they've gotten the right amount of feedback. We hear all of our insider feedback about, oh, we really like this, we don't like that, maybe make this instead. We create that feature until it reaches a level where we're comfortable with shipping it to the world. At that time, we put it into one of the optional quality updates, which is released optionally to retail. And then that flows automatically into the Security Patch Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month update, as we call it, which contains then, at that point, the feature that ended up in the optional update that then flowed into the security update. At which point we're pretty confident that it works really well, it meets the customer demands, has taken all of the feedback, and is safe to deploy for you across your organization. So when we think about them, it's really just a pathway for how things end up to your organization and what controls you have. So really, that's one way to think about it. And I would really recommend delving into more of our servicing technologies to understand that. But I think from a high level, it's really just how do we ship things with quality to you?
Awesome,
and I think
thanks.
we have a blog to share as well that talks a bit more about that.
Yeah, we had a blog that was released this morning that talks a lot about that, and we'll make sure that link gets updated as well in the comments section. I'm going to move over to Jason to answer a question from Timothy, and some of you on the tech community are wondering, why does Timothy have a green circle around his name? It's because Tim Mangan is a rock star. We call him an MVP, a valued Microsoft valued professional. He works a lot with us. He doesn't work for Microsoft. He works with a lot of our technologies. And Tim's asking, given that it appears there will be feature differences between Windows 10 and 11, how should a program or script determine which version or features are available? In the past, we were told to stop using OS numbers and build numbers, but in the last couple of years, features are being released as documented as requiring a certain build number with no info on how to test that feature. Jason, how can you answer that for Tim?
Yeah, so the first point to make is one of the reasons that guidance changed in the past, and for folks that have been around for a while, they may have remembered this. This was really started out as an app compat issue between Windows XP going forward, and it manifested itself as app developers testing for things like version 5 and only version 5. And so when Windows Vista came out, their apps would start failing, and we started having to create things called shims to lie to the operating system about what version it actually was so that these apps didn't actually die. It was ultimately short-sighted developers, right? App developers, which often is part of the problem. So we created this whole set of additional APIs that app developers were supposed to use when they did this kind of testing. And that's where all of those recommendations that Timothy's question alludes to, right? That you shouldn't be doing those kinds of things. Move forward now to kind of the modern era of Windows and Windows 10 and now, of course, Windows 11. And Aria can attest to this, right? And David can as well. When you start looking at how update compliance works behind the scenes and the way the DSS service works behind the scenes, it actually does these explicit things. It does check for build numbers so that you know if that version is compliant or that system is compliant. So while that advice to stay away from that for app developers is still 100% good, because once again, we all know app developers do wonderfully good/bad things. In this case, if you're checking for something specific, once again, like compliance, I think that's the perfect example. Then going ahead and checking those things explicitly, I think is not only okay, but it's in a way expected because there is no other way to test for those things. All right, and that's exactly what our backend services are doing here as well.
It's funny that you mentioned that. When I was a pre-sales and we started going to Windows 10 and customers asked me why we didn't use Windows 9 as an example. And I was always like, because app developers were creating apps that were for Windows 95 or Windows 98, the app would look for Windows 9 and all of a sudden it would try to install and it's not actually supposed to work on this version. So we actually had to skip 9 for that reason. I didn't know if it was the real reason, but I believe that was the reason.
It was absolutely part of it is because of app developers doing those types of checks, right, that were in there. Now, if you're running Insider Preview for Windows 10, or if you happen to have seen a build, it's actually 10.22 something. So it actually is still 10 right now. I don't think we have plans. I can't say for sure, but I don't think we have plans of actually incrementing that to 11, right? So in a way, Windows 11 is more of a branding change in a way, right? Don't quote me on that. That's more me hand waving. But at the end of the day, right, I think it's, especially for scripts, right, if you're checking something specific, as usual, test, make sure you're future-proofing yourself, think of the corner cases, add logging, those kinds of things, do all that you can to make sure that you're not backing yourself into a corner.
Yep, great, thanks. We have a question that came up about active hours via configuration profile. Typically, I go to Aria or David for active hours questions, but this is actually specific to via configuration profile. So Jason, I'm going to start with you, and then our peers can help us out. Can you deploy specific active hours, for example, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. via configuration profile to override the configured WFB? I almost said WFB. We're not allowed to say WFB, so I'm going to go back and say Windows Update for Business. Can you deploy specific active hours via configuration profile to override the configured Windows Update for Business update rings? Can you do that through a configuration profile?
I'm thinking that there is probably a CSP so that if you use a custom, so I can't say I've actually explicitly tried to do this before, but there's probably a CSP that you could do this, but now you're causing yourself these layers of pain, right? Because you're applying multiple things or the same thing from multiple different directions and defining who the winner is at that point in time. And if you're troubleshooting that, I would say that that's a bad idea to do in general. It'd be nice to hear the full use case because maybe you just have maybe a subset of systems that need a separate set of active hours. And there is a case to be made here for having some inheritance or overriding ability so that you can define a major set of settings and then some custom settings for subsets. And those are things that we've looked at doing. I think that might be the use case, but it'd be interesting to hear the rest of the use case here as well, because today I would say stay away from it because you're just going to cause yourself troubleshooting headaches. But
I agree. It's back in the day when we used to push out registry edits, registry hacks, instead of using group policy the way group policy was supposed to be done, we would just throw it registry. And it's the same type of thing. David, do you have anything you want to add to Jason's answer? I saw you nodding your head a little bit.
there's just a few things I think I can build on that because Jason's right on point. The first thing is you're setting up a potential conflict, and I believe that you're going to actually see a conflict error in the Intune console if you do that while you're also using Windows Update for Business Rings, because we've got two different sources trying to set the same CSP on a device when it checks in. And so I would essentially avoid that. Depending on the setting that you're using in the Windows Update for Business Rings for the automatic update policy, some of those expose active hours. And what we're generally recommending, though, for most scenarios is to actually use the reset to default option in the automatic update setting there. And what that does is it allows the client to use the smart active hours settings on that device in order to determine what the best active hours are for that user and to work with that end user to fine tune and to develop the right active hours for those for their situation and their working situation, which is like for hybrid work is going to be a real boon to having that balance between update experience and end user experience, as well as finding the right settings for update velocity.
Thanks. And when you talk about smart active hours, I think those are the words that you use. You're talking about the AI-driven active hours that are built into Windows 10, right?
That's right. Exactly.
All right, cool. So Scott, I'm going to ask you then, we're talking about Windows Update for Business with the active hours. Does all that work on Windows 365 as well, or does that get managed differently for updates? How does that work on Windows 365?
Yeah, good question. So, one of the goals we had in mind was to allow organizations to work within the current workflows and processes they put in place for updating and managing their physical estate. So everything that works today will continue to work. You have the added advantage that these machines are always on and connected to the internet. So your ability to, do broad updates and push them down and the reliability that obviously increases versus someone might have their laptop in the trunk of their car and off for weeks at a time. In addition to that, we are also providing additional tools. For instance, we've created highly curated Windows images that will be pre-installed with Office applications, including Teams, with all the Teams optimizations for running in a virtualized environment. And we'll update those images monthly and make them available as the default for creating new Cloud PC instances. And you can take those images and customize them and make your own, or you can use your existing images. In addition to that, we also provided a security baseline for Windows 365 that has what we have as our sort of default recommended settings for both security and turning on and off different services. And same thing applies here. You can take our security baseline and create your own iterations of that. And we'll be updating those baselines periodically as well. So lots of opportunity to leverage your existing workflows, but also taking advantage of some of the additional resources we're providing as well.
Great, thanks. I have a question that I don't want to ignore in here, but it's a question that we actually can't answer this yet. And the question is, it's from Christian. I'm sorry for turning, but I want to read this. How long will Windows 10 be available? Microsoft Lifecycle page states, Microsoft will continue to support at least one Windows 10 semi-annual channel until October 14, 2025. And just as a side note, that's not a new note. That has been there since the day we released Windows 10. Someone ran with that as being a new note about 4 months ago. It is not a new note. That has always been on the Lifecycle page. But the question goes on. This leads me to believe that there is a possibility of 8 more releases of Windows 10. So we have already announced that we have a Windows 10 version 21 H2 coming next, and that'll be released in the H2 portion of calendar year 2021. We have not announced what's happening after that yet. So just keep your eyes on our blog sites, on the IT Pro blog, on the docs pages, on that Lifecycle page. And when we have something to announce, you'll be the second and third to know, because hopefully I'll be one of the first to know. Ari, I see you laughing a little bit. Do you have anything you want to add here?
I just think it's really exciting to me to see how enthralled and curious people are about all of the upcoming versions. And I think that one way to channel that enthusiasm is I highly recommend you. We actually just released Windows 10 version 21H2 to our release preview customers who had to move from the beta channel to release preview because they didn't meet the hardware floor. And we'll soon then be following that up with making Windows 10 21H2 available to folks who want to try it out in release preview as well. And so I'm super excited for folks who are interested in whether it's the next version of Windows 10 or the Windows 11 that currently is in the dev channel to go and test it out and see what's coming, as well as get excited for all of the future announcements that are coming.
It is. It's exciting because we've had that question a few times. Again, 19 AMAs. We've had that question more than a couple of times, and it's exciting to see either the same person's asking over and over and hoping for a different answer, or we have a lot of people excited. I think it's probably a little bit of both. But David, I'm going to ask you this question. It's almost a follow-up, although it's not exactly a follow-up. Because, and again, it's also from Christian, if Microsoft will continue to support at least one version of Windows 10 semi-annual channel till October 14, 2025, and thank you for keep mentioning that date, assuming new features are available, what's the add value proposition for organizations to move to Windows 11, right? If we're going to keep adding, if we keep having a Windows 10, or even if we don't, whatever the future of Windows 10 is, why should I as an organization start thinking about Windows 11?
That's a great question. I suspect that everybody here has probably a little bit to chime in on that. For me, when I look at it, it is taking advantage of the latest code base. It is getting all the benefits that are coming with the new version of the operating system, including the user experience, which we've been playing with and really starting to enjoy on our own desktops. And being set up so that now those changes, as they come in as new features, you're set up on the right operating system to get the best of those features, because they're going to be less. That's where the greatest innovation is going to be, is in the Windows 11 platform, including for commercial customers over time.
So I know you can't suggest anything specifically, but do you think any of the features that we do develop for Windows 11, what are the chances that some of those will come back down to Windows 10? And I'm going to ask, using something specific like news and features that came to Windows 10 earlier, that was actually, it came to 21H1 all the way down to 1909, I believe. So we do have some features that are available for one version that we call backport, that we make available for early versions. For Windows 11, would you think that most of the features will remain on Windows 11, or do you think some of them might come back down to a Windows 10?
That's going to be on a case-by-case basis, and it's going to depend on customer feedback and potential value of bringing those down, as well as, in some cases, the technical challenges that may be in place and prerequisites that may be required in order for that feature to operate. So there isn't a blanket statement that, yes, we're going to do all or none. It's something that's going to be determined as we move forward.
On a feature-by-feature, as you said, case-by-case basis.
Yes, that's right.
Yep, thanks. Jason, do you have anything else you want to add about like the extol the benefits of Windows 11 versus Windows 10? Should I stay on Windows 10? Anything, when you talk to your customers in your role, and they started asking about Windows 11 over the last few weeks, what kind of things are they asking, and what are you telling them?
Yeah, so it's clearly a difficult question because we don't have all of the pieces and parts out there yet, and people want to see innovation. They want to see, why are we going to go towards something new, right? Why are we going to spend our time on this? If anyone caught the initial sessions early this morning with Dwizzle, right, he covered a lot of the security benefits clearly, so that's one of them. I think one of the reasons Aria is probably involved with so many of these sessions today as well is Windows Updates, right or wrongly, gets a bad name, right, just from that user experience. And so we've worked hard on making sure that that's as seamless as possible, both for consumers as well as enterprises, right? If we can make that as good as possible there and make sure people are up to date in a timely manner, then that's a great place to go as well. And just making it seamless, right? We've all been on, being the kind of not the royal we here, but the Microsoft and the general Microsoft population, we've all been deploying Windows 11 for a small amount of time. And I have it on a tablet and I have it, on a laptop as well. And just some of the small touches just seem to be great. And those are the kind of things I'm trying to personify and to really characterize for customers, that we're thinking about a lot of these things. And that's why we need feedback from everyone as well. But at the end of the day, I think one of the things they've been stressing as well, and Dwizzle's stressed this morning, is it's still Windows 10, right? In a lot of ways, from manageability, from the familiar, icons and things. We've just really refined everything to a huge degree. So familiarity is going to be a big thing, but just making everything work that much better. And so we definitely need everyone's feedback on that. But my experience, what I've had over the past few weeks, it really does work that much better. Clearly, there's some rough edges right now, but yeah, making that end user experience that much more better. One of the things that customers always say to me is, how does this make my business better, right? And so we have to be able to provide that kind of value so that they can go to this with the least amount of friction and the most amount of value.
You had mentioned something about the smaller updates, and we actually call those LCUs or latest cumulative updates. So sometimes we throw acronyms out there like it's alphabet soup, right? So LCU is the latest cumulative update. Aria, we talked about on our announcement on June 24th, smaller updates. Do you know how much smaller are the updates for Windows 11? How small are the LCUs compared to Windows 10?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work in terms of our packaging and in terms of our download size to really decrease download size and to actually make the packages that your devices take on smaller. So if you think about a normal update size that we would have deployed, it'd be about this big. And so the work that we have done in terms of compression has enabled the update size to be decreased about 40%.
Wow.
Which is huge when you think about bandwidth costs of downloading an update or deploying an update from your server to all of the client devices connecting to it. And so this is really going to lead to exact dollar amounts saved as well as time saved downloading and installing the update on your devices.
Great, thanks. And Scott, I'm not sure if you are allowed to talk about this. If you're not, you can slap me after the session. So with Windows 365, and we just announced it, that's when, and you talked about earlier that it was really built on that multi-user Windows 10 environment. Is it available in Windows 11? When Windows 11 it becomes available, will Windows 365 also be there, or is that going to take some more time?
Yeah, and just to clarify, so Windows 10 multi-user is something that's has a high usage inside of Azure Virtual Desktop. We're actually using full client images, providing personal desktops for Windows 365. And we have been working really closely with the Windows 11 team to ensure we've got simultaneous support for Windows 11 when it becomes available, both for connecting up to the service and then also to use as the image hosted by the service as well. So when Windows 11 is available, we'll have preview support, and around spring of 2022, we'll have full support. And when I talk about full support, I'm talking about the full hardware floor of Windows 11. So all the features, will be supported: the virtualization-based security, trusted launch, all of these new exciting security capabilities will be exposed by Windows 365. So that was it was a real big push for us to ensure that we could fully support both. And it might be a great way for customers to start kicking the tires on Windows 11, right? Just to deploy it up into the cloud and start testing your apps and other experiences with it, and then later transition to Windows 11 on the physical devices as well.
Great. And when you say testing your apps, and we're going to keep hammering this down, your app should work on Windows 11, right? So we have that Aperture program, and Aria shared in the last AMA. I don't think it was this one. I think it was the last one. 99.7 or 99% of the apps that work on Windows 10 work on Windows 11. So yes, you should test your apps, sure, but they're going to work. Joe says they're probably going to work, and if they don't, we do have that Aperture program. And so with that, the Aperture program, Windows 365.
Aperture is supported with Windows 65 as well. Great question, Joe. So thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so if you've got applications, if you find any compatibility issues, then we're there to help support you, working with you directly and or the ISVs. And the good news is we had the same Aperture program with Azure Virtual Desktop. So we've already had a few years of working with ISVs and ensuring that those apps run well out of Azure on our virtualization platforms.
Cool, thanks. Jason, I'm going to ask you a question that came up that GovGeek is asking, and feel free to pass that over to some of our colleagues. Any news or any plans on group policy analytics and Intune? An org that's beholden to STIG with CIS benchmarks, it would be great to easily import those template settings without a lot of manual effort. And can you talk about that, and maybe even talk about the settings catalog as you talk about that?
Yeah, there's kind of two parts there. So folks that are familiar with any type of modernization work, so effectively moving their group policies over to MDM policies, Intune-based MDM policies. One of the tools to assist with that and to rationalize those policies so that we're not just bringing that old, for lack of a better word, garbage over that you've had in group policy for a long time. is a tool called Group Policy Analytics, right? Aptly named. So effectively, Group Policy Analytics will import those policies in from Group Policy and tell you, hey, these policies can be taken forward into MDM gracefully. These policies map to ADMXs. Helps you do that rationalization at the end of the day. So I think the question here is really about, hey, how can we easily get the STIG and the CIS benchmarks into MDM policies within Intune? And those are manifested, or the current, the go forward way of creating and maintaining policies in Intune is a thing called the settings catalog. So effectively, you can think of the Group Policy Analytics as a glue or a path to get directly from your group policies to your Intune policies. And so being able to import in benchmarks or standards from third parties is something that we talk about a lot internally. We have our own standards as well, right? We have those as baselines currently within the Intune product itself. But there are folks who clearly have their own ideas of what needs to be a baseline. So yes, there is on the roadmap doing things like importing and exporting. There's no commitment around that. There are also improvements coming in Group Policy Analytics. So we know how important Group Policy Analytics is. We know how many gaps there are in Group Policy Analytics today, unfortunately, as well. And so we prioritize a lot of that work for the second half of this year. So yes, Group Policy Analytics, we're continuing to iterate on and making that a lot better. Settings themselves, we are continuing to iterate on to make those a lot better. And then giving an import-export capability is on the roadmap as well. Like I said, there's no committed dates for any of that, but the sooner the better, of course, from everyone's perspective. Sure. So we're working towards that.
All right, thanks so much. David, I'm going to come to you because we haven't talked to you in a few minutes, and Laser is asking a question about Windows updates, and it's I don't want to call it a loaded question, right? But I'm going to read the question and I'm going to give my opinion before you answer. As Windows updates keeps improving to work better, which it does, thank you for noticing, more efficient with newer OSs like Windows 10 version 21H2 or Windows 11, will this eventually affect older unsupported versions of Windows 10 or Windows 7 from receiving updates? I think the question Laser is asking, and maybe we can ask for more clarity, maybe someone already has, is does Windows Update for Business work with an unsupported version of Windows or one that's already end-of-lifed? So Windows 7 is, if we have extended security updates for Windows 7, which through Configuration Manager, but Windows 10, let's say an older version of Windows 10, version 1703, 1709, do the Windows Update improvements, do they fall down to those unsupported or end-of-life operating systems?
So it depends on the situation. It's a good question. And we should start with the key thing that you should be doing with unsupported operating systems is upgrading them to a supported version of Windows. You'll get the better capabilities, you'll get better support, and you'll also be a much more secure product, which is probably the most important reason to do that. Along the way, though, we want to keep devices current as possible. We do a lot of work to help try to analyze reasons why devices are not updating and do work to help bring them to a current version, a supported version of Windows, because we feel responsibility to all of the customers of the internet to have Windows be a good platform and a good player in the world stage there. And so we do an awful lot of work to ensure compatibility and that there is an update or upgrade channel from all the known existing versions of Windows 10 that have more than like 0.1% of deployment out there. It's in our best interest to keep that working, to keep that moving forward. You may not get the best experience, you may not get the 40% reduction, but there will be a path forward to the latest security update or feature update available.
Thanks. Aria, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm sorry. I was just making funny faces because my dog was licking my foot. I apologize. David's answer covers it perfectly. If you're on an unsupported version, get supported. Your devices are insecure, vulnerable to attack, and will not be in the best state possible. Further, you're missing out on a lot of productivity features, but really the security aspect is what should concern you most.
So if I'm running an out of support version of Windows, let's say I'm running Windows 10 version 1903 and it's no longer being serviced, it's no longer receiving security updates, but can I use that with Windows Update for Business to upgrade to or to update to a supported version of Windows? So can I take my 1903 that's not in support and get it into a supported version using Windows Update for Business?
Yes, that is a great idea. So if you have a device that isn't currently supported, and let's say you're already using Windows Update for Business on it, or you have a client that is managing it on the device, so you can set group policies or CSPs to switch it over to Windows Update for Business. Step 1, make sure it's connected to the internet. Step 2, configure policies to upgrade to the version that's in support that you want to move to, like 20H2 or the new Windows 10 21H2. And then upgrade your device to that version. You can, in some cases, depending how far back you are, need multiple stops. If your device is still for some reason running 1703, you'll likely need to upgrade twice. But the best part of Windows Update is it'll do it automatically for you. It'll take, commit, restart, and automatically restart your device again to get you to a healthy, supported state.
Great. I'm gonna stay on you for a minute because we have a question about Windows Update for Business update rings and enabling the installation download of Windows drivers. Are there any plans for log analytics, tables, queries, or just scrolled right off my screen? And for log analytics, tables, queries, or reports to highlight the installation successes and failures?
Yeah, so this actually is a good one for, I'm going to let David tag team with me here, but we are doing a lot of work on our analytics fronts. So for analytics, whether you're using Update Compliance or you're using Endpoint Analytics, which is available for both Intune and Configuration Manager, we're really trying to improve what you see in terms of, hey, what updates are installed, what updates have rebooted, which devices are having issue, which devices are actually having policy conflicts, because we know that's something that's been requested as well. And so we are working on those improvements there. Not everything is ready, and we don't have timelines for everything, but we are working to make sure that you'll be able to see what's being offered to the devices, when, and have those analytics easily available to you. Not to mention, we'll have analytics that show you which devices are eligible for Windows 11 and which ones sadly aren't.
Thanks. David, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There's a lot we can do, and there's a lot of improvement available for reporting and reporting status, particularly the Windows Update for Business rings that we're using in Intune today. One of the things that we're doing, we're on a journey and we are enhancing the update capabilities in Intune built off the Windows Update for Business deployment service, which includes a common data pipeline with update compliance, for example. So we have common reporting, we have common results, which gives us a couple of interesting things. So on those new policies that we're doing, they're based off of Windows Update for Business deployment service, like feature updates, like expedited quality updates, we've introduced new reporting with those. That reporting provides both a summary view that provides not just devices are in progress, succeeded and failed, but also provides where they are in the update stack or in the update funnel, as we call it, whether they're downloading, installing, or they're ready to restart. And that detailed information does require configuring Windows Health Monitoring, an important point that I'll share because we want to make sure everybody's doing that. But you get that detailed information as well as error reports that show every devices that have an error, what error they had, and a new concept we've been introducing called alerts that helps to bucketize things and provide useful error context with descriptions for what that error root cause is, as well as a recommended remediation for those errors at the same time. So as we bring more capabilities from Windows Update for Business deployment service online, they're coming with that baseline set of reporting. That does leave right now a little bit of a gap in reporting in Intune on when you're using the Windows Update for Business Windows 10 update rings. And the update compliance capability feature, which is available for free today, is a really good place to kind of fill in the gaps there and to be able to get standard reporting today on how many devices are on different builds and revisions or updates of Windows 10 and Windows 11 as that comes out. And we'll be bringing that kind of capability in line in Intune as we start to build out more and more of these update types.
Great, thanks. We have time for a couple more questions. And Scott, I'm going to ask you this question that's also coming from GovGeek, because we do have a lot of FedRAMP customers coming. And so he's asking, GovGeek is asking anything around FedRAMP compliance in Windows 365. Can we talk about that just yet? I know Windows 365, because it was just announced, it's not even released yet. Do you have anything you can Anything you can share about that?
Yeah, it's certainly been a hot topic, and we had an earlier, town hall on this, and asked the experts, and had a lot of questions around this as well. So it's definitely something we've been thinking about through the entire development process, and it is in plan for us to support GCC and GCC High. I can't share any specific dates or timelines now, but it is definitely something that we're hearing a lot of requests for this to be able to run in those environments, as well as just general sovereign instances as well for places like China.
Yeah, thanks for that, and I look forward to it. And as we've said before, keep your eyes open on the tech community pages. Follow Scott on Twitter. We'll put his Twitter handle. I assume, Scott, you're on Twitter. Put his Twitter handle in the comments as well, because that's where you're going to get all the best Windows 365 information, news, and updates. Jason, you talked a little bit earlier about group policies and MDM policies, and we have a question that I just thought, here it was. Christian asked a question: any plans for an endpoint management tool that can convert GPO policies to an MDM or UEM policy?
Yeah, so good question. It's a great follow-on question. In my answer before, one of the things I mentioned was that the group policy analytics tool is effectively that glue, that conversion tool from your on-prem group policies to the Intune MDM policies. There is a merge capability, or not a merge, a convert capability, move. I can't remember what we call it in the console currently today, but it does take those policies that are perfectly capable of moving to Intune policies. So those are the CSPs, the Windows 10 CSPs, and it will actually directly convert those today. We're working on enhancing that to be able to convert it to ADMX-based policies as well. But the takeaway here is we don't want people just to move things over. Yes, there's value there for a lot of organizations, but it's the whole garbage in, garbage out thing here. We really want folks to rationalize their policies and make sure that they're not carrying over, hey, just because we have been doing this for 20 years type thing, and to take a good hard look and ensure that what they're taking over is really needed and isn't going to slow the process down and slow users' logins down as well.
Yeah, it's the user login's a good point. We have things like endpoint analytics and other tools to monitor for slowness and things like that. And I know when I talk to customers, every now and then I'll look at their group policies and I'll see one valid on Windows XP and above, and I'm like, but yes, it's valid on Windows 10, or maybe it worked Windows 10, but it also worked on Windows XP. And I think it's just hung over from back then, and you're probably not really using this setting anymore. You don't need this setting anymore. Do you really want that setting to be available as an MDM policy? Probably not. It's probably not going to be necessary for you. And so I know that I see that all the time. And so you also mentioned, I heard, I think I heard someone talk about updating drivers and firmwares in one of those last couple of answers. It was in expedite updates. And David, can you talk about updating drivers, firmware? I think it might have been you that was talking about it. So I just want to expand on that a little bit for the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the work that we're doing on drivers and firmware. We actually announced in a blog in Ignite this year, March, and it's available on the Windows IT Pro blog site. And I encourage you to look for it if you're interested. We're kind of show what we're thinking and what we're actually in the process of trying to build and make available sometime next year. The ability to not only to manage and approve specific drivers to devices in your organization, but to also then get a curated list of those drivers that are applicable, so that when you're looking through to decide what to approve, that those are available, that you're looking at the right set for the devices that are assigned to that specific policy. And you don't have to worry about finding the right drivers, because these are the ones that have already been identified as being applicable to devices through the Windows Update Scan process. And now they're just waiting for admin approval to be deployed to that device. So that's essentially what we're working on and bringing. And there's an awful lot of good detail in that blog post. And I was talking about that probably in context with some of the reporting that we're doing as well. And so we're going to bring very similar success. Where is it in the update process? And what are those overall error messages or alerts that I can fix to get better results? We're going to have the same reporting for drivers and firmware when we make that available.
Yep, you're right. We were talking about it when you were answering the question on the log analytics and the reporting. So That's right. We did talk about it a little bit, so thanks for expanding that a little bit more.
Great question.
What I like about that is, Surface, we've always made drivers firmware available. And when we talk about today, when we're talking about like that blog post that you referenced from March, we're not talking about Surface only, right? We're talking about, firmware is available for even non-Surface Windows 10 devices. Is that right?
That's right. That's absolutely right. And in fact, in that blog post, there are some attestations, if you will, from some of the OEM partners that our team has been working with in order to help kind of define and build this feature out, but also to start to get some really good support and commitments from the OEM partners. And so this feature is going to work really well across any driver or firmware that's published into Windows Update and is made available through Windows Update. And then you'll be able to manage that set of drivers, which is most of the drivers that are available today.
Great. Jason, I think we have time for one more question. This just came in about SMS B&B asked this question. In a hybrid co-management state, is there a method to query systems who successfully enrolled in Intune? We have checked the SCCM table. I'm not going to read you the table that they checked in the SCCM node co-management, but it does not highlight the Intune enrolled state found in MEM. And first of all, one of my big things is we don't call it SCCM anymore, right? It's Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. So if you have to call it something MECM maybe. But Jason, is there a method to query which systems have successfully enrolled in Intune?
Yeah, so from the co-management perspective, I would just check to make sure that they're actually co-managed, right? There is a value for that within Config Manager that tracks that, because co-management explicitly is being managed or enrolled into Intune and thus managed by Intune as well as Config Manager. So that's the place I would check specifically for that. And that is reflected in the console in collections and the devices view. And I'm sure it's there somewhere behind the scenes in the database, but I couldn't tell you what that is offhand.
All right. Thanks for taking a look at that. And I see one more question because I think we still have time. As organizations plan the update of Windows 10 to Windows 11 via lifecycle replacement of hardware, any particular hardware technology the organization should focus on to take full advantage of Windows 11 in the next few years? David, do you want to talk about, like, we're not really giving minimum specs in this case, but cameras, TPM, anything like that that really we should take advantage of to get the full benefits of Windows 11?
Yeah, it's the better the going to be the better, right? the most recent equipment that you have is going to last longer and is going to provide more value. For example, you started to allude to it, Joe. Having those Windows Hello capable cameras. One of the things that I've been really struck by with some of the latest tablets and laptops from Surface combined with Windows 11 is how fast face recognition is and just how awesome it is just to get it and start working right away. And so things like Hello-enabled hardware, obviously hardware that has the right TPM specs on it for security value, all those things are going to just continue to make that Windows 11 experience better and make that hardware last longer during that life cycle.
We have a blog that I'm going to ask one of our experts to put in there from David Weston, also known as Dwizzle, a security blog. It's going to talk about all that, the security hardware that should be on your Windows 11 devices, to get those benefits. And of course, you want the speed and the collaboration. We talk about that in some of our blogs as well. We have a special guest that wants to make an appearance here. So we're going to talk to Aria one last minute. She can actually, Aria can say her good final thoughts while playing with her pup.
Yes, this is the Ninja dog. I know everyone thought it was only a Ninja cat, but there's actually Ninja dogs too. And he says hi, and to go download Windows 11 and check it out and look into Windows 365 because it is awesome and will also be able to run Windows 11. So enjoy. And if you have any questions, reach out to me at Aria Updated on Twitter or pretty much anyone in this group because they're all awesome and can answer your questions. So bye-bye.
Thanks, Aria. Jason, any final thoughts?
Trying to think. It's been a long day, but it's a lot of great information. I guess if I always have to sum it up in one way, it's the future looks so bright. I got to wear shades, right?
There you go. And Scott?
Yes, thanks for having me on the call. It's great to share some of the great innovation and work that we've done to get to this phase in Windows 365. We look forward to working with you to take feedback. There is some pages that maybe we can send as follow-up where you can go and request features and learn more about it. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I'm at RDS4U, the number 4U, RDS4U.
Thanks, Scott. And Dave?
Thank you so much for having me today. And what I really appreciate is all the feedback from all of our customers that are using our products, giving us ideas to help make it better, and really providing us that fuel that we use that energizes when we go back into the office tomorrow, start working with our dev team, start working with our partners as we start to continue to build and then plan the next evolution of the products that we build for you. It really is great, and it just is so much fun to be able to hear the questions and hear the feedback. And so thank you so much for doing that. And thank you for being excellent Microsoft customers.
Thanks, Dave. And again, I'm Joe Lurie. I'm a product manager. Sorry, I'm a program manager in endpoint management. And I've had a great day today. This is my 7th or 8th AMA, and I got a lot of good feedback from all of you. And I've said many times today, so if you've already heard this, I apologize. Your opinions count, your opinions matter. And so keep them coming, and thanks so much for joining us. I want to also give a round of applause. It's just me, because again, no one's here, for our, the whole tech community team, the behind the scenes people that don't get any camera love, or the camera shy people that have been answering your questions. Just really want to say thank you to all of you and all of them for being with us today. So thanks, and we'll see you the next time we have one of these long AMA sessions.